With this conversation, I've got a big sister, a wonderful sister that I love very much. Her name is Nkhapi. And, she's one of those people that whenever a crisis happens, right, she'll just intervene. She'll step in. She'll just be that person who's overflowing with an abundance of solutions, right? And a lot of love in that. And sometimes we're just like, that's Nkhapi. That's just her nature. She just steps in and she feels in, when there's an event happening, she'll be the one that's first there to support and make things happen. When there's a crisis, she's always there, coming with some kind of intervention that's going to also make us feel better and also kind of let us all go on this mission of solving things out. But the question is, what happens when people like that also kind of get drained? What happens when that constant giving leaves you numb and irritable or maybe just worn out? We call this compassion fatigue. It's like emotional and physical exhaustion and usually comes from caring deeply for others, especially when the pain never seems to end. So you are the one that's always constantly there. We're going to be unpacking a little bit about compassion fatigue with our guest today. Deborah Olusola joins us, a clinical psychologist. Deborah, welcome on the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm using my sister as an example because she is amazing. And in fact, this conversation, as I speak about, I'm like, I need to do something for my sister. I need to be the one who also gives a little bit of compassion towards her, because at times we take those people for granted who are always there. And why we do that, Deborah, it's because, you know what, it's in their nature. And we say, it's just who they are.
Yeah. No, definitely. But it comes at a cost, doesn't it?
Sure.
And that's why this topic that you've brought up is quite important, especially around this time of the year, because compassion fatigue essentially is the cost of caring in simple terms.
Yeah.
Because right now, a person has been doing so much, giving so much of themselves, pouring so much into other people's needs, other people's stresses, and now they're experiencing high levels of stress because of the people that they care deeply for, whether it's people, whether it's animals. And usually the people they're caring for are going through something difficult, stressful. Maybe they're struggling to do certain tasks and activities. Maybe they've gone through some kind of trauma. But because of this person's nature, their empathy, their ability to empathize and be compassionate, it eventually takes a toll, because sometimes they take on more than they need to take on.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're taking on responsibilities, full-on responsibilities, without allowing the person or the people they're trying to help to also share in those responsibilities. So that's what eventually leads to compassion fatigue. Because the reality is we're not robots.
No, we aren't.
So,
Not at all.
so yes,
Deborah, a lot
yes,
of
yes.
us do show signs of compassion. I believe, as humans, we all have all these different personality traits. So we show compassion in different ways. And if all of us have some kind of compassion, all of us have people that we care about. And in all relationships, it's almost like a give and take, a dance where sometimes you have to give, sometimes someone else will give to you. What kind of person would then experience a compassion fatigue?
Literally everyone and anyone who's put in a position where they care for others. So, we often find that, for example, a caregiver, somebody who's taking care of maybe let's say an elderly parent or an elderly relative, or even a child that is sickly. We find that, people in the health profession, they, like nurses and doctors, medical staff, encounter compassion fatigue. Like I said, especially around this time of the year, people are exhausted. They have been giving so much of themselves, helping others who are going through difficult traumas, difficult stresses, and now it's starting to catch up with them. We see also social workers. Social workers are often put in the fields where they are dealing with vulnerable populations, children, victims of abuse, refugees. They see a lot, and they are required, their task, their what is needed from them often takes a lot from them emotionally. even mental health professionals, like us psychologists, at this time of the year, we're seeing an influx of clients, we're seeing an influx of patients, and they're going through a lot of stress at work, stress at home, now that the festive season is coming. So they're needing help from us. We also see those in the emergency field, like your firefighters, your police officers. I'm sure you've been seeing all the shootings that are taking place, like in Benoni. It takes a toll on them as well. And as I mentioned, those who are in the caregiver role, whether it's taking care of a family or friend, it tends to take a strain, a physical strain, an emotional strain, because it's an ongoing process that you're helping somebody who may not be able to help themselves. You're seeing how it is impacting them. And sometimes this is why we call compassion fatigue as like a secondary trauma. Because you're seeing somebody in pain, you're seeing somebody in distress, you're seeing somebody who may not be able to help themselves. And mentally, that is also going to affect what you see.
Yeah.
Depending on the situation. So it can involve bleeding, it can, like I mentioned, the abuse that social workers see, doctors see. So that leaves a lasting impact on somebody's mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit more about that after the break, because I'm sure if this is your career, you're probably going to feel guilty. You're like, I'm tired. My generosity cup is not overflowing today, and I'm not in the mood for giving compassion today. How do you use that as an indicator of something more positive? But also, there's also that guilt that you also have to deal with and relate with. So we'll unpack that after the break. Stay with us there. What are your thoughts on this one? We've got that on the move poll. Let us know what you think about this one at Channel Africa 1 on X. That's where you can find us.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week.
Ready to connect, innovate, and be inspired? It's all happening at Africa's Tech Festival, where Africa's technology meets the world. From the 10th to the 13th of November in Cape Town, join global leaders, investors, and innovators driving the future of Africa's digital economy. Don't miss the continent's biggest week in tech. Get your pass now at africatechfestival.com.
Get set and be ready to go. On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
We're chatting about something called compassion fatigue, especially if you're one of those people who are in the line of work where you're constantly giving, where you're constantly interacting and showing compassion to others. Even if you're just ordinary folk in your life, there are people who sometimes are quite demanding of your compassion. And especially if you are that person and you're known to be that person, people will always run to you for assistance, always come to you for advice. And you've just known that, hey, I can't stop showing up for people because this is what they know. But what happens when that has completely drained you? We're still speaking about this with clinical psychologist Deborah Olusola, helping us really unpack what it looks like to have compassion fatigue. When this happens, if you are a very compassionate person, the people who you are compassionate to, the people in your life, have come to expect this from you, Deborah. They've come to expect that, you've got great advice, and let's call her if we need solutions to something. Let's call him if we need advice. Or maybe I just need a good cry. Let me just go visit this person and spend some time on their couch crying. Well, how does this present itself to the person who is now fatigued? What are they feeling exactly when they feel like, you know what, I am drained and I am tired? And how do they deal with those particular emotions?
Yes, no, definitely. The signs and the symptoms are very obvious when somebody's feeling compassion fatigue. Usually they start to feel helpless, frustrated that they can't do more than what they're doing, or they feel powerless, or they start to notice their empathy is starting to reduce greatly. So I heard one of you mentioning becoming irritable. So if the person is calling maybe for help, or you see their number on your phone, maybe you start to roll your eyes, or you give a large sigh out, because now you know that this person needs help and you don't know if you have the capacity to be able to give them help. Feeling overwhelmed, feeling extremely exhausted, or you feel detached, you feel numb, or emotionally disconnected. Sometimes people notice when others are constantly like daydreaming, that physically they are present, but emotionally they're not there, mentally they're not there. Or other signs are, extreme anxiety, sadness, struggling to make decisions. They seem a bit confused at times. Maybe they're sleeping difficulties, eating difficulties, overthinking about the issue or the problem that they need to solve. Physical symptoms like headaches, nausea, stomach problems, conflict in their personal relationships, because now they're struggling to navigate what they need to do, what they need to stop doing, and now it's affecting how they're interacting with those close to them. Even neglecting their own self-care sometimes starts to take place. Sometimes they let go of their hygiene. They're not combing their hair or brushing their hair or packing their hair neatly. And sometimes we do see, unfortunately, people starting to self-medicate. They're taking medications to sleep, they're taking alcohol, they're engaging in gambling. So these are some of the signs and the symptoms that we start to see with those who have compassion fatigue.
I'm wondering, Deborah, where the middle line is here, because usually those people who will eventually experience compassion fatigue, like we've mentioned so many times, are those people who seem to always be reliable to the people around them. So how do you stop yourself, if this is part of your personality and this is part of who you are, which is really an amazing trait to have? I don't think it should be encouraged, especially in the world where so many bad things are happening, to say don't be compassionate. But if you are an extremely compassionate person, how do you draw the line so that you still give that compassion, but you don't reach the point where you're fatigued by it?
Absolutely. It's, we're very familiar with that saying, you can't give from an empty cup.
Yeah.
You can't be at your best self and do what you need to do if you are completely empty. And so I think sometimes we don't realize that as much as we want to be there for others, we also have to be there for ourselves. So I always advocate, as you're thinking about other people, you also have to say, and me too. What about me? How can I also show up for myself? So I often encourage that we need to take out time for ourselves. As much as you want to be available for somebody, you can't be available 24/7 and completely neglect yourself. So whatever it may be, take the breaks where you need it.
Yeah.
You take your daily breaks, 1 hour, maybe after 3 or 4 hours, just have time to yourself. Go into a nice corner or into a nice room, go and breathe, meditate, do some mindfulness, or just distract yourself so that at least you can ground yourself, center yourself, breathe in and out, just so that your body, your nervous system can start to relax. And, if, for example, you're starting to feel anxious, you help yourself by calming down, focus on your breathing and slowing down your breathing, just so that you can center yourself and be more grounded. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you're not in control of the situation, then separate yourself from the situation and try and figure out like who to talk to, who you can get help with, just to help you momentarily. Because like I said, we can't do everything and we won't be able to show up because, again, also you had mentioned the guilt before the break. So there's that guilt that I want to do more, I can't do more, which adds another stress to you.
Yeah.
Stress to your mind, stress to your body. You're worrying about what you can't do, you're still not doing it. So it becomes this crazy cycle. So it's better for you just to take some time, just to breathe, just to de-stress. If you need to go to therapy, just to help. Because like I said, some of the professions or the roles that people are put in can be very traumatic.
Yeah.
Very traumatic. And you can't ignore your own trauma because you're going to experience all the flashbacks, the sweating, palm sweating, the shaking, shortness of breath. So it's important for you to be able to take care of your needs and to be able to reach out for support.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about reaching out for support. That's such a good segue to go into as we wrap up the conversation because, let me use this example. When you're borrowing money from someone, that person usually gives you the money. They're trustworthy, right? But if you are the one that gets to give someone that money, that, I can't go to that person because they have financial problems, so they don't have what I can give them. They are in need of what I'm actually giving them. Because I see this person keeps coming back for the same thing. So money must be an issue. So when I need money, I can't really go back to them. I think it's the same with compassion, right? Because where you give compassion, it doesn't mean that you're going to get it where you are actually directing your compassion to, right? So how do you find yourselves in an environment where you're also getting that TLC? We all need that tender, loving care, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is very difficult to go back to the people who've been relying or dependent on you. Again, it also comes with that knowledge or the guilt that, this person may not have the capacity to do what I'm doing for them. So it's important to be able to reach out. So, for example, with caregivers, we often ask them to seek out support groups for people who are going through similar things, some form of group therapy, or some kind of community groups that have been formed to be able to help people in such conditions. So to be able to seek out like your local groups to be able to help you navigate through the emotional and the physical turmoil, going to a counselor or a therapist to be able to help you, or even just knowing others who've gone through similar situations, because we all know somebody who helped somebody else. And so it's nice to be able to engage with them and also find out from them, how do they de-stress, how do they focus on themselves, how do they take time out without feeling guilty, to be able to now just engage with them and also to feel much better about yourself, that, taking out time for yourself is not a bad thing, but yet it's actually very good, very helpful, very healthy, so that you can be in a better mindset and physically being able to take care of yourself. And also just being able to take little walks and exercises, that also helps a great deal. Sometimes not everybody wants to talk about it. So you can take your walks, you can have do hikes, exercise, those little things, self-care activities, pouring back into yourselves makes a world of a difference.
Absolutely. Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Deborah. I think it's always important to leave it at a note where those who care for others can find ways and spaces to also be cared for, because we all deserve it. Thank you so much for having this conversation with us today, Deborah.
Thank you for having me. Keep well.
That's clinical psychologist Deborah Olusola speaking to us about compassion fatigue. You might have experienced it as well, especially around this time of the year. That's our On the